It's our second budget forum, and a couple of things we want to do. The first thing we do is share a video that unfortunately everyone in this room has already seen, but we like to show some things that are going on. And oh, the video didn't play.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Dillahan,
So,
and
roll
this is
that
Mrs.
first.
Santello. We teach 5th and 6th self-contained at J. Watson Daly Middle School, and today we're having a invite someone special brunch for Valentine's Day. We started doing activities like this the last couple of years here at Valley. Students are really, they just get really excited to have family come and see what they do here at school. It really helps their self-esteem, and it just brings everyone together. They had 4 poems to pick from, and they really took ownership of the poems. They had to write them, edit them, revise them, bring them to final copy, put them out, decorate them, and they really were proud of them because for some of them it's very difficult to do some of the higher level things. So to do something that they felt very comfortable with and very proud of.
You made a lot of it. You put it in that door. She's my little
Such a great way and such a positive way to get parents in. And the kids feel really fun and special because they're the ones that are presenting the poems and awards to the parents. So usually it's the kids getting all the accolades, and here it's the parents and the family members that are being honored.
So as everyone here has seen that, except for Mr. Bird, so that was his first time seeing, he wasn't here last week, so we showed that for Mr. Bird's sake. Just wanted to quickly, it was seems like a long time ago when we first met. It was before Thanksgiving, so we just wanted to, and during that meeting was really about, we broke up into groups and we talked about some ideas, and Mrs. Heidecker went through and just kind of listed out the things that people talked about and their priorities. I won't read them all to you, but the priorities in some areas where people thought we'd be looking for efficiencies, or maybe some of these things that didn't really fall under efficiencies. But I think ideas. I mean, I know there was talk about warehouse administration, paper waste as being ways to be a little more efficient. Bridge program with SUNY Ulster, things like that. So a lot of this is about program, but we saw a lot of these things here are things that we already have. Very few of our priorities. These are really about priorities of things that people are looking to maintain. Jumping right into it, this is where we kind of the rubber hits the road. A lot of people think we're very late in the process, and yes, budgeting is a year-long thing, but really we are early in the process as far as projecting where we are. As everyone knows, we have the governor's budget, but we don't have, the Senate and the Assembly have not weighed in, so we really don't have our true aid numbers yet, but this is what we have to work with, and it's, it gives us a good place to start. And so what we have here is we have last year's budget, just to give you some ideas of where we were last year, and then the proposed budget for this year. One thing, we have a good idea, we know what our rollover budget will be, and what a rollover budget is. In order for us to stay exactly where we are, maintain our programs, do what we're doing with the increased costs, this is our estimate of where we will be. We do have some wild cards in there. We're still not exactly sure about where our health insurance rates will come in. So that's a pretty big wild card, actually. That could be something. We have estimates, we have ideas, but we don't know for sure. So we're still in the process of trying to narrow that down. But this really gives us a good area, and I think we're pretty close there. Our revenues, again, really this is mostly state aid. The state aid is based on the governor's proposal. again, not through the Senate and the Assembly. We also, just so it's clear out there, also within those revenues, there is allocated fund balance of $1 million. So we have our state aid minus our total appropriations, tells us what our tax levy needs to be in order for us to basically stay status quo. Our tax levy needs to be just over $100 million for us to stay status quo. What does that mean as far as a tax levy? And if you look across here, the tax, that would mean a 2.77% tax levy. And we know the whole conversation used to be about appropriations. People voted on what we were spending. They don't do that anymore. Now they vote really about what our tax levy is. And we're going to talk about tax levy in a minute. So our tax levy to break even, to stay where we are, is 2.77. Now, our tax levy limit, which is what the number, the amount that we can actually levy and stay within the tax levy limit law, this year is 3.37. So if we wanted to stay even, we're at 2.77. If we wanted to go all the way to the tax levy limit, 3.37, we would see that we would end up above water by about $600,000. Again, these two numbers, this is a conversation, for the administration to talk with the board about, and look at what our priorities are, look at where, and also maybe it's a little bit of sharpening pencils up at this number. But again, 2.77 is a break even, and 3.37 is our tax levy limit, which puts us to the good for about $600,000 if we wanted to add additional programs, reduce those kind of things. So it's a conversation. Again, this is a lengthy conversation over the next few weeks as we get ready to be closer to our budget vote and our deadlines. Now, you would look at this and you would think, oh, well, then everything should be okay, and then state aid isn't an issue. But the truth of the matter is, these two numbers aren't numbers we necessarily want to have. More state aid will allow us to do several things. One, will allow us to maybe keep these numbers lower, and also add program as well as on top of keeping our program, obviously. Maximum allowable levy calculation, as I always say, it's not a tax cap, and it's not 2%, as I just showed you. 2.77 would be our break even, but 3.37 is our tax levy limit. Why is that? It's not a straight up, it's not a straight and easy answer. This is our 2015-16 tax levy calculation. Here's our 2016-17 calculation. As you can see, multiple steps, very complicated, but we'll try to walk through it. So our 2016-17 tax levy, prior tax levy, so this was our tax levy last year. We take that, we multiply that by our growth factor, which is 1.0046, gives us our base levy. Our base levy, then we add in any pilot agreements, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So those are for special deals that are made for people who bring new businesses in, those kind of things where they get to pay a certain price other than the taxes that were actually assessed on that property. So that would be a payment in lieu of taxes pilot, one of those nifty acronyms that we make up. So you add in the pilot, then you subtract prior year exemptions. Okay, so our prior year exemptions are about us not going to the tax levy limit the year before. Sorry, Mrs. Woodard's shaking her head at me.
Capital tax levy from the prior year.
It's our capital tax levy from the prior year. You'll see this number is going to come up again. Oh no, it's not. Hang on, that's a different one. Okay, so our prior year exemptions are right here. An adjusted prior year tax levy, and this brings our tax levy up to $99 million. So we can still more on the calculation to come. Then we take and we multiply that by allowable growth factor, or CPI, whichever is less. This year, 2% or CPI, whichever is less, the CPI is less, 1.0012. So if you look and you multiply by that, we end up with lower this year base levy than we had last year. Now that is about this number right here. The CPI being lower than 2%, it becomes that. Then we subtract our pilots from the year before, from that number, and then available carryover, which is $613,642. We add that in, and this will be our tax levy before exclusions. As if this isn't complicated enough, the exclusions piece is is coming next. So again, our tax levy is less than our tax levy was last year. But this year, we have some things that have changed. We have some exclusions that we're allowed. And our exclusions really are around our building project. Last year, we had $625,000 in exclusions. That's the number I said we had up here. So we saw it in 2 places. This year, obviously, we all know we have a much bigger project, many more projects out there. We have $2.7 million as our capital tax levy allowed in here for this calculation. So we have our maximum tax levy goes up, even though we had this number here, to $101,711,879,000. So that is that number that I showed you back here. This number here, which we are allowed on the tax levy. There. Questions? Let me go back to that slide, because I think that's the most interesting.
So the levy limit is, in terms of the rollover budget, I mean, we're obligated to have a zero, our revenue have to match our expenses.
Correct.
So our rollover budget, whatever that expense is, unless we add new program, that's what we're, that's what the appropriations would be.
Right.
Our new,
That would be
our
increased.
rollover budget.
Mhm. I mean, whatever that increase would be, anything we change, any new programs that would add to this number.
Right.
And again, if we went to this, you know, we would go up to, I mean,
We would have
we
that.
could increase that.
We'd have that buffer, we'd have that amount of, that we could increase program by that amount of money and still stay under our tax levy limit.
Right. Of 3.37. You know, I think one of the big conversations that has to continue to happen with people is people still have 2% tax levy cap in their mind. I say it all the time, it's not a cap, you know, it's not 2%. And you know, again, this year, just by the nature of this capital tax, the capital tax levy piece here, put us up, really raises our tax levy limit. And Mrs. Woodard wants to say something.
I just wanted to say, we're going to see substantially lower numbers in surrounding districts. Because what's driving that 3.37 is our capital tax levy. New Paltz, we were at stated planning today. I think Saugerties was at 0.21 or some number. New
Great.
Paltz is negative. They're going to be at 0. So comparatively, as you look around around the state and around the area, you know, there's going to be we're going to look, that number is going to probably be higher than a lot of districts will
And
have.
There's a lot of education, I think, that needs to go on around this, and again, we will try to continue to educate, but this is going to be the case for many years to come. Our tax levy limit is going to be higher than everyone's, pretty much, basically, looking at this line right here. We have a massive building project going on. So that's going to continue to boost our tax levy limit number. Again, this year it's only 3.37, but in out years, the more we get building, the higher that's going to go. I mean, we're looking, I think we're going to be very high as far as the tax levy limit. So, you know, it's almost as the tax levy limit may not be part of our conversation as much as it is in other districts, because we're not going to, if we go 9%, I don't think that's something we're going to bring to the voters just because we have that capital tax levy issue. Do you want to add to that, Alan?
Well, but on the other hand, we're going to have to cover our costs, and as the project goes and the debt service increases, both principal and interest, you know, it is going to force us up a bit on the budget side. So we'll have to be as careful as we can on the non-capital side to kind of keep things contained.
Other question? Thoughts?
If we go back to the original, to the first slide, which was last, the priorities, is there anything in that list that the administration sees as being something that is outside of the rollover budget that we should consider?
But many of this, and I think a lot of these things are kind of, well, many of these things we're already doing, and many of these are partial things. Continued focus on reduction of class size, we were there, that's there a couple times. Class size and class size. This special education inclusion in lower models, in lower grades, and one of the things I was at the high school today having a discussion with some people, and their concern is special education inclusion at the upper grades, because they see the self-contained at the high school as being one of those issues that they would like to tackle, and I think that's, we've done really well with this piece. I think it's about, and this is a conversation we need to have about the high school. Also, we are looking at making sure that we are servicing our most needy students in this budget. That's one of the board goals. That's one of the things that we've been talking about, is how are we going to make sure that I think that the idea of two patients go into a hospital, one has pneumonia and one has a common cold, who are you going to take care of first? And I think one has a heart attack and one has a common cold, who are you going to take care of first? So we'll take a look at how we're going to disperse our resources around a lot of things, and Mr. Olson and I are working on that. Like I said, many of these things are things we are doing. The cohort model is something we supported in last year's budget. Now, with the addition of social workers and the movement towards having that cohort model going on, but to continue to support that. And again, that's about not making, a lot of these things are about not making cuts more than additions. Continue to protect things. Now, people frequently, when we ask questions like that, they talk about what can we, they talk about things that we have, not as much as things that we don't, that we're not going to, or that we want to have put in place. So I think those are our, we're expanding the opportunities college through expansion of SUNY Ulster, which is something that is not necessarily as much of a budget item as it would be thought that it is, because we already have so much of that. It's just about rethinking how we do it. So I think that a lot of these things are things that we already do here in the district, and a lot of people just saying, look, what can we save? CDOS and internships, and this is kind of a new thing. There's a new requirement that we're working on, but we've already hired an internship coordinator, and this may grow in the future. This is going to become something that we really are going to need to look at. That need may grow in the future, but for right now, I think we've got ourselves poised to be able to handle that.
Are there specific things that are planned for special education secondary level? Because that's where we still are lagging with graduation rates.
Well, we are lagging with graduation rates. I will tell you that one of those thoughts is around the inclusion at the high school. The other side of it is we are very preliminary, but we are very optimistic about the graduation rate for our special education students this school year. I think we identified that 2 years ago as an issue, and we've been working on it. I think this year we're going to see some of the fruits of that labor. But I think a conversation it's a conversation I want to have with Mr. Forster and Mr. Virgil. What are the options? What are the things we can do at the high school to get more inclusion in there? What would those resources? What each resources we need to bring to bear? And again, we don't know if that's about changing how we do things, reallocating, or is that about additions?
Or then by addition than just, I don't know how much we've done with actually bringing the personnel there and having them come up with initiatives or alternatives to what they can do in addition to RTI, what they do in addition to things that they're already doing. I mean, I know we've had an adopt a student program years ago where we adopt as many as we could take, and actually work with them with a list of exams. People would sign on for different exams.
Yeah, it was clear to me that the conversation is going on within that department at the high school today, because they were ready to talk to me about it. So and they're already, so I said, okay, I'm gonna come back and I'll talk to Mr. Virgil and Mr. LaForest and see how we can, hear what you have to say, and things that you think need to happen, and what we need to do to make it happen.
What is CDOS?
CDOS is an acronym for, now it's going to totally go out of my head. Mr. Virgil, do you know it?
I think it's career development. Is it
Occupational
studies?
studies, yeah. Okay, career development and occupational studies, right? And CDUS is a certificate. It is not a diploma, you remember this. It's not a diploma, it's a certificate. It's for special education students. And it basically, through internships and classes in the school, gives them a certificate. They can go out to employers and say, hey, I've completed this training. But it's not in place of a diploma, but you can still get both. You know, it's not that you don't do one or the other. Mrs. Heidegger?
I just wanted to say, as some of you might have noticed, I accidentally replicated some of the priorities under the efficiency list, and that'll be corrected before I post this on the website tomorrow.
Well, I think some people may have put them in both places.
No, if you see the bottom, like 5, under priorities,
Yeah,
when I copy and pasted, I accidentally got those there, so.
okay.
Anyway, that will be corrected.
Fine.
Sorry about that.
Where are we with the bridge program with SUNY Ulster in terms of working on associates and certificate programs?
Yeah, right now, where we are is we are in the counseling phase. Our students are going over there right now and working with their admissions people to line up what kids need. It's kind of like that step one, and coming back into the high school to take those classes. So it's taking a lot of twists. This has, you know, with President Kopp leaving, and so now Dr. Roberts and I are kind of getting ourselves together. He's come in with some ideas from Florida where he was. So we're twisting and turning, but we're going to the right place.
Is the high school going to do the admissions testing again at the high school, or are they having the students go to?
I think we're still doing that at the high school.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's been, right now, they're doing some admissions counseling. We're also having some conversations with them about P-TECH. And one of the issues we're having with P-TECH right now is they are outgrowing our space. And so that's right, there's not a lot of space there. So there's a conversation going on with what can we do there, again, to just continue that kind of, I mean, to me, I see it as kind of a dynamic campus with all that going on at one point, at one time. As long as no one gets hit by swinging steel.
The new cohort for P-TECH.
What's
And
that?
this budget does include the new cohort for P-TECH class.
Yes, which is really a role, to me, I see it as the rollover because we've been putting there. So we do have a new cohort for Kingston students going into P-TECH of 12 students.
I heard a large number of students who are interested.
I think that I know that there are a lot of students interested, not only in Kingston, but in our surrounding districts. It's just a matter of whether their districts are interested in sending them. I was there 2 weeks ago. I met with representatives from State Ed who came down to see what we were doing. I had a nice meeting with them. They're pleased with the way we're running the program, excited about the growth that's happening. And, you know, I see great things happening in there. And it's going to take a little while for every